account, go right here, right down here, see where it says create an account, and the website is www.thctrust.org. And then click create an account and go ahead and create your account, and then after you have an account you can go ahead and log in to follow along. Steps to discharge a mortgage. The claim for discharge is based on the fact that one has a constitutional right to access money. However, the present system of commerce doesn't use money as we know it. This creates an inability to pay a debt and also a remedy in equity, which results in an adjustment of the account and a discharge in full acquittance of the obligation to pay the debt. Sometimes it seems impossible to discharge a debt. They, the system, the bank, the people at the court, they're all criminals and they won't let me do it. I understand this line of thinking and the frustration that exists. It's like trying to do something with no solution. Therefore, we adjusted our strategy, this is what I just talked about, and approach to a process that does not rely upon anyone's approval to yield results, or at least that's our focus, right? We want to be able to enforce what we have, so it doesn't, so that we don't just have to say, well, I gave them the paperwork and they dishonored it. We want to be able to enforce it so that we can potentially have leverage so they will honor it. So we don't take the position that the CFO for the bank or the county recorders are gatekeepers, but more so that they are our fiduciaries. Our presentment further establishes, that's the presentment that we're going to present here. Our presentment further establishes this fact and gives us an angle to enforce their performance in regard to delivery of the remedy, the effective discharge. So basically, when we're saying we're discharging it, we're going to give them a presentment to have the effect of discharging the mortgage. And I should say this too. I stated it before, but let me define, at least to my understanding, of what a discharge of a mortgage looks like. Because if you don't really define what a discharged mortgage looks like, you may be chasing and trying to fight things without any real objective or a remedy. And there's enough people that's involved in an endless fight over mortgages, which it's not something you want to do. You could be fighting for years and years. So we want to discharge in full acquittance, discharge the obligation to pay, because we can't pay for anything anyway. So then we want those books adjusted. We want a settlement, basically, in one form or another, right? So, but what I was stating is the discharge to me looks like this. The charging instrument is the mortgage deed. I'm talking about what they actually record in the county. And depending upon where you are, it may be called a deed of trust. It may be called a security deed. But that is the actual charge, the charging instrument. It's what creates the obligation that requires performance. And if you are in a foreclosure, anyone who's been in foreclosure, you'll see that the attorneys who are foreclosing, the first thing that they are mentioning is the charging instrument. They're bringing the charging instrument. They always reference the page and the book number or the instrument number in the county where the charging instrument or the live instrument exists. So the real discharge of the mortgage is the satisfaction and the discharge of the charging instrument, which would be called a satisfaction of lien, a release of mortgage, a discharge of mortgage, a full reconveyance. Specifically what it's called, again, always depends on, how they do the business in the state where you are. So you will review the records, review the laws of satisfaction of mortgage or release of mortgage in your state, and just familiarize yourself with how things are done. Because ultimately, from my research, the majority of the time, and some states may be different, like Michigan seems to have a different setup, but I'm still not sure. It could be the same. But the majority of the times, there's going to be the recording officer is also a Constitution officer. They're an elected official, and they take the oath to the Constitution, which places them under the national government, right? So the majority of time, that recording officer is actually the person who puts the satisfaction or the release document. They're the actual ones who record the record, and then they make the entry in the margin. They make a indexing entry or whatever, which actually releases the lien. So they do like a book entry, basically, if you will. They're accounting. They're basically doing accounting in some form or another, but they are the person responsible for recording the release instrument. So a lot of times we're looking at the bank and the bank officer saying, I gave them these documents or whatever, but they didn't do it. But really what usually happens is the bank, or the one operating as the trustee under the mortgage deed, once they process or once they acknowledge that it has been satisfied, they send the documents to the recording officer, who then once again goes in and does the actual act of satisfying or releasing the deed. Now, usually, of course, when they do this, they have a governing statute that says who is authorized to send the documents to issue a discharge of mortgage instrument, or who is authorized to issue a satisfaction instrument. Now, you really have to look at this, because they will tell you according to the statute, which is not necessarily the law, but they would tell you according to the statute, only the bank can do this, or only an attorney can do this, or only the title company can do this. It may say only the owner can, only the owner and the successors. So you actually have to look at the requisites in your county of who can record the release or satisfaction instrument. All that's going to be local stuff, because sometimes there's not going to be any prohibition there that will keep you from recording the instrument. Other times you're going to have to build around that, because they may state something like only the bank can, or only the bank and its successors in interest can. So if it were to say something like that, you could use your ability to contract. When you make a presentment to the bank, you have the default provisions of responding or not responding. You can write in default provisions that cause them to succeed the specific right for you to issue the satisfaction instrument.